Her nickname was Pooter. She had brains, beauty, and talent. Dawn Wells was a fan favorite for many years during and long after starring in one of the most iconic shows of the 1960s. She could do it all. Well, almost all. There was just one thing that Dawn could not do. Her most famous character was from a farm in Kansas, but Dawn was born and raised in Reno, Nevada. At one time, she wanted to be a ballerina, but bad knees prevented this. She did study drama in college and even won the Miss Nevada beauty pageant in 1959. She also participated in the Miss America pageant the next year. By the time the 60s rolled around, Dawn had already secured acting roles on shows such as Maverick, Wagon Train, and 77 Sunset Strip.
Tried to smooth things over. However, she was pretty busy on her own.
How do you mean?
Well, there seems to be something going on between her and that magician, Alan Joyce.
But the show that made her a household name, even though her name wasn't even mentioned in the opening initially, began in 1964, Gilligan's Island.
With Gilligan, the skipper too, the millionaire and his wife, the movie star, and the rest.
Gilligan's Island was universally hated by every critic with a voice or pen, but was loved by fans. Several famous guests visited the uncharted island during its 4-year run, including Zsa Zsa Gabor, Kurt Russell.
Do you see it too?
It's not an it, Skipper. It is a boy. It's a jungle boy.
And I suppose that if I turn around, I'll see it too. I see it!
And even Don Rickles.
I know, but I can't stop. Whenever I know there's money around, I get an itch. That's why I left civilization. To go someplace where there's no money, and I wouldn't be tempted. Then I saw you people. Then the itch came back.
And before we get going, I have a trivia question for you. What famous singer who had a top hit in the 60s was also featured on Gilligan's Island? That answer coming up. Back to Dawn. She was one of the most popular characters on the show and received the most fan mail. This mail was not just from young men and boys, although a lot of it was. Fans of all ages really adored her, seeing not just her physical beauty and on-screen charm, but her real-life sweetness.
Let's say that Ginger's the most beautiful, Mrs. Howell certainly is the most gracious, and last but not least, Mary Ann is the sweetest.
It was no act. So, did her popularity fuel tensions between herself and co-star Tina Louise? Also, the long debated question has been, why was the Professor and Mary Ann so glaringly omitted in the Season 1 opening theme song? There were actually a couple of very different explanations for this. The first had to do with the finalization of the cast. In the pilot episode called Marooned, which was filmed in November of 1963 and didn't air until almost 30 years later, neither Dawn Wells, Russell Johnson, or Tina Louise had yet been cast. In fact, the character of Ginger was not an actress, but a secretary, as was the other young female whose name was Bunny.
We leave all our friends on this tropic shore. Perhaps they will be here forevermore.
In that incarnation of the show, they were marooned somewhere in the Caribbean, as evidenced by the Cuban-flavored music featured at the end. This would be changed to the South Pacific, as its vastness made being lost a little more believable. Also changed were 3 actors, which made room for Dawn, Russell, and Tina. Producers cited these last-minute changes as the reasons Dawn and Russell were not included in the opening credits song. But if this was the case, why then was Tina included, as she was added at the same time? The other explanation, a more plausible, albeit more sinister one, had to do with Tina Louise's contract, which reportedly stipulated that no one was to be mentioned after her in the credits. Whether this was true or not, what was true was that Tina regarded herself as a star and was not thrilled that she didn't receive top billing for the show. Creator Sherwood Schwartz had to remind her that it was not called Ginger's Island, but Gilligan's Island. It was in fact Bob Denver who played Gilligan who demanded that Dawn and Russell be included in the opening, and by season 2, the Professor and Mary Ann were mentioned at the show's beginning. So was there really any animosity between Ginger and Mary Ann? It was no secret that Tina Louise was somewhat aloof and distant and didn't socialize much with the other cast members during or after the show's run. She also really resented her Ginger character afterwards, saying it caused her to be typecast. Dawn was the opposite. She loved interacting with cast, crew, and fans, and she embraced her Mary Ann character after the show ended. But she also had no ill feelings towards Tina. The truth is that Wells saw Tina, much as Tina saw herself, as a big movie star. According to published reports, Dawn felt that they couldn't be rivals as neither woman saw the other in the same world and they weren't enemies. They simply ran in different circles. At one point, Wells even showed Louise how to cook a Thanksgiving dinner. So we know Dawn could cook. As mentioned, she had aspirations of being a ballerina, so she definitely could dance. And as an actress, she had appeared in dramas as well as comedies. So what was the one thing that Dawn Wells could not do? Despite all of her other gifts, Dawn Wells could not sing.
I want to be loved by you, and nobody else but you. I want to be loved by you alone. Ooh-be-doo.
The notoriously tone-deaf beauty would even throw off her other cast members with her voice if they were all singing together. She was therefore diplomatically requested to lip-sync during group songs. On the one episode where she imagines that she's Ginger, she does use her own voice in a less than stellar performance. But on another episode where the women perform as the honeybees, Tina Louise and Natalie Schafer use their voices, but Dawn's voice is dubbed by a professional singer.
Like a baby needs a toy, like Hawaiians need their boy, like a girlie needs a boy.
That singer is the answer to our trivia question, Jackie DeShannon, who was not only the singing voice of Mary Ann, but also had a top hit of her own in the late 60s. This was from 1969 and was called Put a Little Love in Your Heart. Of course, if you still have problems with the way Dawn sings, there are other females you can turn to. Thank you. Ooh. Before we go, some things you might not know about Dawn. She was actually married during the run of Gilligan's Island. Larry Rosen, who was once her agent, and her were married for 5 years from 1962 to 1967. She also auditioned for the role of Lois Lane in the 1978 big screen movie Superman. That role went to Margot Kidder. Dawn also owned her own company, Wishing Wells, which made clothing for people with disabilities. And in case you thought she was idle after the island, she has appeared in nearly 100 theatrical productions since 1967, averaging about 2 plays per year. Whether or not she could carry a tune, there's no doubt that Dawn Wells has been able to carry our hearts for 60 years. And many would agree that the world is a better place for it. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the share button, especially if your friends, like you, have great taste. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, that way you'll be notified whenever I add new content. And feel free to leave a comment or two.